Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 101, Who is behind this? An elder in charge of the situation immediately replied with contempt in his voice, "It must be that troublemaker Tsunayoshiro Tokunada. The child has chosen a disobedient chess piece." Although he claimed everything was under control, the situation is obviously deteriorating rapidly. Another elder added disdainfully, his wrinkled face contorting with disgust, "It is truly outrageous for a mere court army to attempt to take over the defense of our noble Tsunayoshiro family. I have said before that we should not be too polite to those beneath us. Otherwise, they will forget their place and fail to distinguish between master and servant." Tsunayoshiro Tokikawa nodded sagely, his silver hair catching the light as he spoke with the authority befitting the head of one of Seoul society's greatest noble houses. Whether it is Tsunayoshiro Tokunada or Uehara Shiroa, they are merely minor inconveniences. Since they refuse to show proper obedience, we shall teach them a lesson. His eyes narrowed dangerously. Especially this damn Shiroa, he must be disciplined severely. To covet the power of the Tsunayoshiro family, he is truly courting death. You are right about one thing, someone is indeed courting death. Unfortunately for you, it's not Uehara. With a shallow, mocking laugh, Tsunayoshiro Tokunada suddenly appeared in the grand hall, materializing as if from thin air. In his hand, he held a weapon that exuded strange, pulsating power, an ancient artifact that seemed to bend the very spiritual energy around it. An elder slammed his fist against the ornate table, the sound echoing through the chamber as he shouted, "Tsunayoshiro Tokunada, you are not qualified to attend this meeting. Who allowed you in? Get out at once." None of them harbored any positive feelings toward Tokunada. The man had consistently refused to cooperate with their plans, and his numerous crimes had been exposed, bringing nothing but shame to the family name. Now he was collaborating with outsiders to seize power within the Tsunayoshiro family, a disgrace beyond measure. "The Enreiki Oten? Where did you obtain our family artifact?" When Tokikawa saw the weapon in Tokunada's hand, his pupils contracted in shock and his voice turned grave. "So it's all true. You really do harbor ambitions beyond your limit. You are nothing but a traitor. You deserve to die." Tokikawa had long suspected that the Enreiki Oten had fallen into the hands of the elusive Otsutsuki Naruto. Only someone with such unpredictable abilities could have stolen their family artifact without detection. Yet now the sacred weapon appeared in Tokunada's possession, which could only mean one thing: Tokunada had likely allied himself with that dangerous outsider. Colluding with strangers to obtain the family artifact, had Tokunada truly lost his mind? "I may deserve to die," Tokunada conceded with a casual shrug, his eyes gleaming with malicious intent, "but before I do, I'll send you and the entire Tsunayoshiro family to the afterlife first." With a casual wave of his hand, a group of black-clad shadows rushed into the hall. The assassins moved with deadly precision, slashing through the unprepared elders as screams erupted throughout the chamber. At the same time, Uehara Shiroa approached the heavily guarded and extraordinarily luxurious Tsunayoshiro mansion with surprising ease. For him, the residences of the four noble families held no secrets. Coming here was like returning to his own home. Yet this time, as soon as he crossed the threshold, the unmistakable metallic scent of blood filled his nostrils. The guards who should have been vigilantly patrolling the perimeter had all fallen, their bodies sprawled lifelessly across the ground. Even the elite sentries hidden in the shadows had been dispatched with efficiency. They hadn't even had time to sound an alarm. Whoever the attackers were, they clearly possessed intimate knowledge of the estate's defensive arrangements. Uehara glanced at the spiritual barrier surrounding the mansion. Through his perception of erasure, he detected obvious damage in the protective field. Although this barrier would have posed no challenge to someone of his caliber, it was still formidable by most standards. The Tsunayoshiro family's ancient legacy had allowed them to establish defenses that even Uehara considered respectable, high praise coming from someone of his abilities. Such protections would have deterred most intruders. Furthermore, stone barriers were strategically placed throughout the mansion's grounds. Even captain-level Shinigami would struggle to overcome them quickly. But now, with the main barrier compromised, the mansion stood virtually defenseless. As expected, Uehara mused, even the most vigilant guards cannot prevent betrayal from within. He clearly heard bursts of agonized screams emanating from deep within the mansion. He knew immediately that Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada had made his move. The plan was simple but effective. Within Soul Society, nobles with sufficient resources maintained private armies of mercenaries, the Onmatsukido serving as both training ground and headquarters for these hired killers. These mercenaries were loyal only to those who paid them. With enough incentive, they would not hesitate to assassinate even members of the four great noble houses. Tokunada had evidently placed all the influential figures of the Tsunoyoshiro family on his assassination list. Uehara estimated that he had used the power of Kyoka Suigetsu to hire so many killers simultaneously. Of course, these assassins were merely a diversionary tactic. Tokunada's true weapon was the Inreikyoten. He intended to eliminate all clan members gathered in the conference hall along with the hired killers, who would serve as convenient scapegoats. With no surviving witnesses, the matter would be closed without evidence. Those assembled in the hall represented the Tsunoyoshiro family's power structure. Once they perished, no one would remain qualified to inherit leadership except Tokunada himself, who had only recently regained his freedom. As the sole surviving heir, he would naturally become the family head. Uehara had to admit that the plan, while simple and brutally direct, reflected the characteristic madness of what he privately thought of as the Red Eye Disease family from Naruto. The Tsunoyoshiro clan truly was filled with lunatics. Under these circumstances, Uehara reluctantly decided he would need to play the role of Obito and send Itachi on his way. With this thought, he donned his Obito mask and flash-stepped toward the now ominously quiet conference hall. The once luxurious chamber that had represented the majesty and status of the Tsunoyoshiro family had transformed into a vision of hell. Severed limbs and debris littered the floor, while splattered blood painted the walls and ceiling crimson. Among the carnage, standing triumphant over countless corpses, Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada held the Inreikyoten aloft, laughing with arrogant satisfaction. "Hee, you're all dead," he crowed, eyes wild with delight. "The Tsunoyoshiro family belongs to me now." Sure enough, only the wicked get the last laugh. He had regained his confidence by slaughtering these arrogant, incompetent clan members. In this moment, Tokunada believed himself in control of everything, convinced he could accomplish anything. It's getting better. Everything is getting better. This feeling is truly exquisite. Next, he would kill that man, wash away his shame, and begin anew. At that moment, Uehara Shiroa emerged from the shadows. He slowly clapped his hands and spoke in a light, almost conversational tone. "Although I knew you were unhinged, I didn't expect this level of madness. You actually killed all your own family. To this, I can only say, well done. I've been waiting for you." Tokunada grinned maniacally and pointed the Inreikyoten at Uehara. "I've anticipated this moment for so long. While it was satisfying to slaughter those old fools, I'm far more eager to tear your throat to pieces." The members of his clan had been too weak to withstand the power of the Inreikyoten. Now it was time to eliminate the only remaining insider and avenge his previous humiliation. "It seems you have no intention of keeping your promise," Uehara observed, regarding Tokunada with an amused expression. This lunatic had been rampaging long enough. It was time to end this farce. Tokunada responded indignantly, "Stop your pretense. From the beginning, you never intended to let me live. Your talk of cooperation was nothing but deception from start to finish." Having been manipulated so many times before, Tokunada had gained enough experience to glimpse Uehara's true intentions. Of course, this was largely because Uehara hadn't bothered to conceal his thoughts. There had been no need. Even with knowledge of the plan, Tokunada had no alternative but to follow Uehara's design. From the beginning, he had been merely a puppet, helpless to act outside the rules Uehara had established. Uehara spoke calmly, his voice devoid of emotion. "You're correct. From the moment I found you, your fate was sealed. Although you've served your purpose admirably, I cannot allow you to continue existing. Believe me, your death will benefit everyone, myself, the world, and even you. So accept your fate with dignity and cease your struggling." "Why?" Tokunada demanded, fury evident in his voice. "I don't understand. I'm more valuable to you alive than dead, why must you kill me? Is it because of some ridiculous sense of justice? Are you no different from those other fools after all?" Of course, even if Uehara had spared him, Tokunada would have eventually turned against him. He would never permit this insider to survive. Most importantly, Uehara needed to pay for everything Tokunada had sacrificed. Uehara shook his head dismissively. "This has nothing to do with justice. I simply don't want to see you causing further trouble. That's all there is to it." "Kill me?" Tokunada clutched the Enreikyoten tightly, his knuckles whitening. "As a mere civilian, how could you possibly comprehend the nobility and extraordinary power of the Tsunoyoshiro family? You have no conception of the Enreikyoten's true capabilities. Before our family artifact, you are as vulnerable as an ant. It is you who will perish here today." Uehara Shiroa surveyed the carnage around him. The hired assassins and elite guards of the Tsunoyoshiro family had died tragically, each dispatched with a single, devastating blow. Their bodies lay strewn across the once pristine floor, testament to the brutality of their killer. Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada himself possessed the strength of a senior captain, and with the artifact Enreikyoten in his grasp, his power had increased to rival at least 30 times that of Kensei Mugyaruma. Such combat prowess made him a formidable fighter even among captain-level Shinigami with 1,000 years of experience. No wonder Tokunada was brimming with confidence. Facing the aggressive noble, Uehara Shiroa spoke with undisguised contempt. "Although you've always claimed that this world and the Tsunoyoshiro family were born from sin, deep down, you're still unwilling to relinquish the power and resources of your family." His eyes narrowed behind his mask. "Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada, as a villain, you are truly despicable, but as a clown, you are absolutely excellent. The Soul Society and the Three Realms were all built upon the sacrifice of the Soul King, but the key truth was that the Soul King had not sacrificed willingly. He had been forced to sacrifice voluntarily. The first person to launch a treacherous attack on the Soul King had been the ancestor of the Tsunoyoshiro family. With the help of the Soul King's dismembered body, the world gained its foundation, and the Three Realms were born. This was the original sin of both Soul Society and the Tsunoyoshiro family, a truth completely different from the sanitized history the five noble families presented to the world. Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada, who had accidentally discovered these secrets, had his entire worldview shattered, driving him to the brink of madness. Yet instead of exposing these secrets, he had chosen to embrace the darkness. His twisted logic dictated that if the world was fundamentally corrupt, then he would revel in that corruption, taking it to its ultimate conclusion. It was the behavior of a true clown. "Shut up!" Tokunada roared, waving the Enreikyoten furiously. "Shatter, Kyoka Suigetsu!" Silently, a strange spiritual pressure enveloped the entire chamber. Using the power of the Enreikyoten, he activated Aizen's hypnotic Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu, creating an illusion that replaced his body with one of the corpses on the floor. The Enreikyoten possessed the terrifying ability to copy the Shurkai release of any Zanpakuto its wielder had witnessed, and could maintain multiple Shurkai abilities simultaneously. The only limitations were that using this power consumed the wielder's life force and permanently reduced their spiritual strength, and only members of the Tsunoyoshiro family could utilize this artifact. Since the Tsunoyoshiro family controlled the Great Spirit Book Archive and the video hall before it fell into Shiroa hand, Tokunada had observed most Shinigami Shurkai releases. In his hands, the power of the Enreikyoten became truly horrifying. The reason he had immediately employed Kyoka Suigetsu's hypnotic abilities was his fear of Uehara's spatial manipulation powers. If he allowed his opponent to leverage those mysterious spatial abilities, he would stand no chance of victory, even with access to multiple Zanpakuto Shurkai releases. After activating Kyoka Suigetsu, Tokunada felt more secure. Without hesitation, he waved the Enreikyoten again, his voice reverberating through the hall. "Slaughter the auspicious, revere the shadows, and cast off the rod of time. Gagaku Kairo." Black light and powerful spiritual pressure flooded the chamber. When the light faded, 30 monstrous entities had materialized around him. Each creature resembled a white sphere the size of a brown bear, lacking eyes, nose, ears, or limbs, possessing only a bloody maw filled with enormous, razor-sharp teeth. These monsters could defend or attack according to their master's commands, and their lethality was extraordinary. Their teeth gleamed like crystal jade, and their bodies exuded an ominous aura reminiscent of the Minos Grande. However, while the presence of a hollow reflected blasphemy and hunger for life, these creatures emanated pure annihilation and destruction, a fatal threat that would make even the most hardened Gotei 13 captain shudder. This was the Gagaku Kairu, the Zanpakuto Shirkai of Kenpachi Kuruyoshiki. After summoning the Gagaku Kairu, Tokunada breathed a sigh of relief, the smile on his face growing more ferocious. With Kyokasu Uegetsu concealing his true location and the Gagaku Kairu providing both offense and defense on a massive scale, he believed himself invincible. Even against spatial abilities, this combination offered substantial protection, allowing him to relax somewhat. Gagaku Kairu, Tokunada commanded in a cold, shallow voice, "Devour him for me." At his command, 30 horrific monsters surrounded Uehara Shiroa, their gaping maws dripping with anticipation. Witnessing this display, Uehara raised his eyebrows. Far from feeling fear, he experienced a flicker of excitement. "Your Zanpakuto's power is impressive, but it will be mine in the next second." He maintained a keen interest in the Gagaku Kairu's abilities, already formulating plans to replicate them. The Gagaku Kairu was a biological Zanpakuto capable of full-range attacks. Its most distinctive feature was its overwhelming power, so great that even its owner couldn't fully control it. Its ability to summon creatures to devour enemies made it formidable even in its restrained Shirkai state, where the 30 summoned monsters remained under reasonable control. Its Bankai, however, was truly terrifying. Once activated, a giant maw with a radius of several miles would materialize on the ground, covering an area several times the size of Karakura town. Within this range, everything except the Zanpakuto's wielder, whether living or non-living, friend or foe, would be devoured, bitten, and torn apart. This Bankai could only be described as a natural disaster, its destructive potential second only to Yamamoto's Zanka no Tachi. The power was so overwhelming that even Kenpachi Kuruyoshiki himself couldn't fully control it. After using Bankai, he would be unable to release his Zanpakuto again for half a year, not even to its Shirkai state. It was precisely because of this indiscriminate lethality that Central 46 had strictly forbidden Kenpachi Kuruyoshiki from performing Bankai within Soul Society under any circumstances. In truth, Kenpachi Kuruyoshiki's strength was formidable by any standard. 200 years ago, he had easily defeated a Vasto Lord-level Hollow while using only his Shirkai. His spiritual pressure defense was so robust that even someone as powerful as Zaraki Kenpachi would struggle to penetrate it. Indeed, Kuruyoshiki remained the only Shinigami ever recruited to join Squad Zero primarily for his combat prowess rather than any special creation or invention. As the monsters closed in, Uehara's lips curved into a subtle smile beneath his mask. Chapter 102, Shattered Pride. Despite his tremendous power, Kenpachi Kuruyoshiki had declined an invitation to join Squad Zero, believing that as a Kenpachi, his rightful place remained with the 11th Division. The fact that a man of his caliber couldn't completely control the Gagaku Kairu was testament to the Zanpakuto's overwhelming power. The Zero Division's interest in recruiting him was undoubtedly influenced by this world-destroying potential. For such a formidable Zanpakuto, Uehara Shiroa naturally held great interest. Rather than immediately countering the monster's attack, he observed them carefully, his keen eyes dissecting their movements and structure. Through his perceptive observation haki, he quickly uncovered the secrets behind these creatures. He acknowledged their lethality, it was indeed an exceptional ability, but they posed no genuine threat to him. Simultaneously, he clearly perceived the illusions Tokunada had created with Kyokasu Uegetsu. Through these fabrications, Tokunada attempted to conceal himself and his monstrous creations, but such deceptions were useless against Uehara. Even without the mind gem, Uehara remained immune to Kyokasu Uegetsu's effects. The reason was simple: in Tokunada's hands, Kyokasu Uegetsu was a mere shadow of the weapon Aizen had wielded. Shinigami battles were, at their core, contests of spiritual pressure. For Kyokasu Uegetsu to be effective, its user needed to possess spiritual pressure exceeding that of the target. Though Uehara had existed as a Shinigami for only a century, compared to Tokunada's millennium of experience, the enhancement of his attributes through the task panel had elevated his spiritual pressure beyond his opponents. Consequently, Tokunada's Kyoka Suigetsu had been ineffective from the beginning. As for the Gagaku Kairu that Tokunada had such high expectations for, even these monstrosities couldn't penetrate Uehara's defense. The perfect universal barrier he maintained rendered his protection comparable to that of a transcendent being. Witnessing his terrifying monsters overwhelm what he believed to be his enemy, Tokunada displayed a smug smile. He waved in Reikioten again, activating yet another Shurikai ability, reduce all creation to ash. Ryujin Jaka. In an instant, a wall of multicolored flames swept forward. The horrific temperature engulfed the spacious conference hall, reducing everything in its path to ash. The Ryatsu-infused flames surged toward Uehara like a fire dragon, their heat seemingly capable of incinerating even the soul. This was Tokunada's tactical approach. First, use Kyoka Suigetsu to confuse the enemy. Second, employ the Gagaku Kairu for simultaneous offense and defense. Finally, unleash the most powerful heat-type Zanpakuto Ryujin Jaka for a killing blow. This three-pronged assault would have devastated ordinary captains. Even those with millennia of experience might suffer grievous injuries when facing such a combination. For Uehara Shiroa, however, it presented no challenge. As the flames approached, he executed a flawless Shuinpa, appearing before Tokunada in a flash, and delivered a deceptively simple kick. This basic combination, ordinary flash step plus Hakuto, carried enough force to make the noble feel death's approach. Sensing the powerful spiritual pressure and lethal intent directed at him, Tokunada's composure shattered. He had known his opponent was formidable, which was why he had remained vigilant, constructing an elaborate tactical system by continuously spending his life force regardless of the cost. Yet he truly hadn't anticipated his opponent's overwhelming strength. His carefully constructed triple release ability couldn't even withstand a single kick. It was beyond outrageous. Moreover, how had his opponent penetrated Kyoka Suigetsu's illusions and pinpointed his actual location? In this critical moment, Tokunada's solid foundation as a Shinigami saved his life. He flash-stepped backward instantaneously, avoiding the majority of the impact. Nevertheless, his lungs suffered damage, and blood trickled from the corners of his mouth. After another flash step to increase the distance between them, Tokunada stared at Uehara in shock, confusion evident in his voice. Why aren't you affected? Isn't the hypnosis of Kyoka Suigetsu supposed to be unbreakable? Uehara responded with undisguised contempt. I believe you fundamentally misunderstand. Whether it's Enreikioten or Kyoka Suigetsu, they're nothing but garbage in your hands, because you yourself are garbage. Do you comprehend that? Fulfill Hisagamaru. Tokunada quickly copied Hanataro Yamada's healing Zanpakuto to treat his injuries. Though his wounds closed immediately, his face turned deathly pale, and his spiritual energy visibly diminished. This was the price of wielding Enreikioten. After just a brief exchange, his soul's strength had decreased significantly. Despite this deterioration, Tokunada still exhibited a maniacal smile. He. What could you possibly know? People like you will never understand the Tsuneyushiro family's greatness. The history of Soul Society was created by us. I will bury you completely with Enreikioten and make you a mere footnote in history. After his arrogant declaration, he once again recklessly wielded Enreikioten, sit upon the frozen heavens, Hyarinmaru. For reasons unknown to Tokunada, he couldn't copy Uehara's Shurikai. Otherwise, he wouldn't have resorted to using Toshiro Hitsugai's Ice Dragon. As cold air permeated the chamber, moisture condensed into a magnificent azure ice dragon that lunged toward Uehara with fangs and claws poised to strike. At this moment, Uehara activated his unlimited blade works ability, summoned another Enreikioten and whispered, sit upon the frozen heavens, Hyarinmaru. A more agile, larger, and visibly colder ice dragon materialized from thin air, instantly tearing apart Tokunada's attacking dragon. Staring at the Enreikioten in Uehara's hand, Tokunada was stunned into silence before exclaiming, why do you also possess Enreikioten? Moreover, your Enreikioten is even more powerful than mine. Are you also from the Tsuneyushiro family? His face grew even paler. He had placed all his hopes on Enreikioten's power, and now his opponent wielded the same artifact with greater proficiency. It nearly broke him. "Your Tsunoyoshiro family isn't worthy of association with me," Uehara declared, waving the Enreikyoten copied by his unlimited blade works. "The Enreikyoten of your family isn't particularly impressive. Furthermore, I can use it without any cost. So, tell me, are members of the Tsunoyoshiro family worthy of my attention? This is impossible. This must be fake, all illusions." Tokunada felt the universe had conspired against him unfairly. He had struggled tirelessly and endured countless humiliations to obtain this divine weapon. In the end, he had to sacrifice his lifespan to use it, while his opponent could wield it freely without cost, and with greater effect. If this were true, wasn't the Tsunoyoshiro family nothing but a collection of fools and clowns? The injustice was unbearable. The increasingly unhinged Tokunada began frantically activating various Sanpakuto abilities through Enreikyoten. Shoot to kill, Shinso. Scatter, Senbunzakura. Yet each attempt ended in failure. His spirit spear was shattered by his opponent's identical but superior technique, leaving a gaping hole in his shoulder. The scattered cherry blossom blades of Senbunzakura couldn't penetrate his opponent's own Senbunzakura defense. No matter which shurikai he employed, Shiroa countered with the same ability, amplified and perfected, inflicting injury after injury upon the noble. After several exchanges, Tokunada was covered in wounds, his once vibrant hair now gray, his smooth skin now etched with deep wrinkles. Due to excessive use of Enreikyoten's power, he had transformed from a middle-aged man into a withered elder. Meanwhile, Uehara maintained his appearance as a handsome, vigorous young man, unmarked and radiating power. Witnessing this stark contrast, Tokunada's spirit finally shattered completely. Unfair. It was too unfair. He couldn't win. He couldn't win at all. The noble no longer displayed his previous arrogance and complacency. His heart seemed to have plunged into an eternal abyss of ice, his entire being consumed by cold desperation. How was this possible? Why had he lost, and lost so thoroughly and humiliatingly? It's not over yet, it can't end like this. Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada bit down on his loosening teeth and waved Enreikyoten desperately. "I will fight to the last moment. I will control this evil world. I will make you feel pain and despair." This time, he didn't activate any special abilities but instead lunged toward Uehara Shiroa with a direct slash. Since Enreikyoten's copied powers had proven ineffective, perhaps raw combat might yield different results. When did you start believing this was a battle? Facing the desperate noble, Uehara felt no pressure whatsoever. True, 1,000-year-old Shinigami desperately channeling their spiritual pressure and fighting with their life on the line could indeed demonstrate remarkable combat prowess. However, 1,000-year-old Shinigami was not equivalent to a 1,000-year-old captain. And with Tokunada's premature aging, his hair now completely white, he had little vitality left to sacrifice. In truth, with his current strength, Uehara could have easily defeated Tokunada even at his prime. For him, this confrontation barely qualified as exercise, let alone a battle. "You." Hearing this dismissal, Tokunada's fury ignited. But before he could finish his retort, the figure before him vanished. He swung his sword through empty air, wasting the spiritual pressure he had struggled to gather. Suddenly, he felt a tremendous force surge from behind. Caught completely off guard, he stumbled forward and fell face-first onto the floor. Under normal circumstances, Tokunada would never have suffered such humiliation, but Enreikyoten had consumed too much of his life force. The strength of his spiritual body had deteriorated significantly, and his physical functions had been severely compromised. When Tokunada had attacked, Uehara had calmly flash-stepped forward, effortlessly evading Enreikyoten's blade. In the same fluid motion, he had transformed his sword into a gun, using the flat side to strike Tokunada's back with enough force to send him sprawling. After executing this sequence, Uehara merely regarded his opponent with amusement. As he had stated, their exchange resembled an adult toying with a child rather than any legitimate contest. Reduce all creation to ash. Ryujin Jaka. Tokunada had realized his embarrassing position. Even at his peak, his swordsmanship had never been exceptional compared to other captains. Now, with his aged limbs and diminished strength, close combat was clearly not viable. Under these circumstances, he could only rely on Enrikioten's abilities for one final, desperate stand. In reality, Tokunada still had the option to escape. He possessed one last trump card. Yet his pride refused to accept such a humiliating conclusion. After all his sacrifices and suffering, to flee in disgrace? If he ran now, wouldn't his previous efforts have been meaningless? With this thought, Tokunada resolved to take at least a piece of his opponent before departing, his last act of defiance against his inevitable defeat. Once more, a terrifying sea of fire materialized. Each swing of his blade sent forth deadly flames that seemed capable of incinerating even spiritual energy itself. Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada, don't delude yourself into thinking you're special or significant, Uehara said coldly. In my eyes, you are completely worthless. You're capable of nothing but impotent rage. The facts have proven that even wielding your family's greatest artifact, you remain nothing. Faced with the billowing inferno, Uehara didn't bother to move. Though these flames could easily incinerate ordinary captain-level Shinigami, they couldn't penetrate his defense. Even thousand-year-old captains lacked such formidable protection. There was a reason Shinigami had earned the nickname Glass Cannons. In truth, even transcendent beings might hesitate to face such devastating flames without activating their abilities. But Uehara could stand firm, his defensive capabilities ranking among the finest even among transcendents. The perfect level universal barrier truly was a marvel. This is impossible. This must be an illusion. Witnessing Uehara standing unharmed amidst the flames, Tokunada's mind fractured further. He absolutely refused to believe his opponent remained unscathed. This was Ryujin Jaka, the strongest heat-type Zanpakuto in existence. If Ryujin Jaka was truly so ineffective that opponents could simply ignore it, how had Yamamoto Genryusei Shigakuni maintained his position as Soul Society's strongest Shinigami for thousands of years? Had he relied solely on reputation? Tokunada couldn't comprehend the scene before him. His mind short-circuited, his vision blurred. With his thoughts in chaos, all he could do was swing his sword again and again. Endless flames erupted skyward, blotting out the sun, devouring everything in their path. Wherever the fires touched, the ground cracked and vitrified, the very air seeming to combust. An ordinary being who inhaled even a single breath of such scorching atmosphere would have their internal organs instantly cremated. Yet amidst this apocalyptic firestorm, Uehara's figure remained motionless and unaffected. Not a single strand of his hair was singed, his immaculate clothing unmarked by smoke or ash. He completely disregarded the infernal tempest surrounding him. Witnessing this, Tokunada descended into complete madness, pushing himself harder to channel Enrikioten's power. Suddenly, flames, frost, blades, monsters, and numerous other strange manifestations converged upon Uehara, enveloping him completely. Countless Shirkai abilities emerged in overwhelming succession, transforming the surrounding environment into a fantastical realm of deadly beauty. These powers combined and enhanced one another, evidence that Tokunada, despite his deteriorating state, had applied tactical thinking. This represented his ultimate attack, the final expression of his desperation. Facing this barrage of powerful Shirkai abilities, Uehara concentrated his spiritual pressure and executed a single slash. Since his opponent couldn't produce anything new, the time had come to end this farce. The razor-sharp blade flashed momentarily before disappearing. After a brilliant white light, the various Shirkai abilities froze in place, as if constrained by an invisible force. An extraordinarily powerful spiritual pressure enveloped the world, even time and space seemed temporarily suspended. Silently, the slashing force swept across space like a hurricane, obliterating everything in its path. Both tangible and intangible abilities shattered into nothingness. The power of a single stroke proved utterly devastating. Uehara possessed not only numerous supernatural abilities but also the capacity to break all techniques with a single force. He had no weaknesses, only trump cards. The invisible Shirkai abilities were actually sliced to pieces. Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada's expression froze in disbelief. He hadn't imagined his opponent's cutting technique could be so overwhelmingly powerful. It dawned on him that he had been nothing but a clown from the very beginning. As this realization struck, he felt his life force rapidly draining away. He had desperately activated multiple Shurikai abilities to block Uehara's terrifying slash, pushing Enreikyoten to its absolute limit. The price was the near-complete exhaustion of his life force, his spiritual body on the verge of collapse. In this moment, he resembled a candle flickering in a gale, his remaining time measured in minutes rather than years. Despite this, Tokunada still refused to relinquish his grip on Enreikyoten, making one final, defiant stand. With a voice hoarse, desperate, and filled with resentment, he asked, "Why did you have to oppose me? Why are you so impossibly strong? I refuse to accept this." Chapter 103, Aftermath. A final blade of light streaked through the air, propelled by Tsuneyashiro Tokunada's last reserves of spiritual pressure. The attack contained unimaginable madness and destructive intent, a desperate man's final grasp at revenge. "It's natural to feel resentment," Uehara Shiroha remarked, dismissively ignoring Tokunada's ultimate struggle as he prepared his own blade. "Don't worry. You won't feel so irritable once you're cold." He slashed downward with graceful precision. "I'll grant you eternal peace. No need to thank me, consider it your year-end bonus. We in the court army are so generous." In the world of Shinigami, a weak mind spelled certain doom. This wasn't the Arkham Asylum Talent Development Center, where greater insanity translated to greater power. Tsuneyashiro Tokunada possessed neither the ability to overcome his situation nor the courage to accept reality, a true clown in every sense. His schemes and ambitions had been utterly ridiculous from the start. It was better for such a waste to die quickly and be reborn. Most importantly, Uehara simply disliked him, the primary reason for Tokunada's demise. With a single strike, Tokunada's aged body shattered like glass. Even in this moment, he refused to relinquish his grip on Enreikyoten, roaring with his final breath, "I'll be waiting for you in hell." "You won't have that opportunity," Uehara replied with casual confidence. "Even if you truly descend to hell, I would merely become its king and continue to defeat you just the same. Without me, hell is merely a life sentence. With me present, hell becomes truly hellish." The keen edge of Uehara's blade swept away Tokunada's last vestiges of resentment and struggle. His madness, his viciousness, even his status as one of the 5 great nobles, all proved meaningless before absolute power. Standing amid the devastation, Uehara surveyed the Tsuneyoshiro family's remains with satisfaction. Their earlier exchange of Ryujin Jaka's Shurikai had transformed the entire hall into an unrecognizable charred ruin. All corpses had been reduced to ash, saving the trouble of cremation. These figures who had once stood at the pinnacle of Seoul society's power structure were now mere specks of dust. In his eyes, the supposedly untouchable Tsuneyoshiro family had amounted to nothing special. Uehara had merely added fuel to an already burning flame, accelerating their inevitable downfall. He hadn't even exerted himself seriously in the process. Now came the time to collect his spoils. After tens of thousands of years of exploitation and parasitic existence, the Tsuneyoshiro family had accumulated vast wealth and resources. Since he had effectively avenged the Tsuneyoshiro family's many victims, these riches rightfully belonged to him. With this thought, Uehara gazed upon the horrifying scene before him, nodded appreciatively, and exclaimed, "What a feast!" In the Soul King Palace, members of Squad Zero observed the destruction of the Tsuneyoshiro family and Tokunada's demise through special instruments designed for such surveillance. Senjamara Shutera, a woman of breathtaking beauty and frigid temperament, expressed amazement. "What an entertaining spectacle! I never anticipated such a remarkable junior would emerge from Soul Society. His destiny greatly intrigues me." The perpetually youthful Kiryu Hikifune smiled innocently, "Hee. I'm quite interested in him as well. This fellow is not only handsome but also courageous. He even dared to move against the 5 noble houses. Truly an exceptional Shinigami." Tanjiro Karinji, sporting his characteristic slick-back pompadour, responded with exaggerated concern, "Hey, what are you two going on about? This guy is creating serious problems for us. Captain, are we really going to allow him to continue acting with such impunity? My patience grows thin." Zero Squad Captain Ichibe Hayasube scratched his head, feigning distress. They're all so troublesome, especially this youngster who dared to plot against the 5 noble families who shaped our world. Such audacity! Despite his words, his expression remained remarkably relaxed. He made no move to rise, showing no intention of seeking justice for the fallen Tsunoyoshiro family. Are we truly not going to intervene? Asked the sword god Otsunomiya, confusion evident in his voice. Hadn't Hayasube always emphasized that the establishment of the 3 realms was inseparable from the contributions of the 5 great noble houses? That their Zero Squad existed in part due to these founding families? Now that one of these houses faced extinction, this bald-headed sage remained motionless? Though they had been friends for tens of thousands of years, sometimes even he couldn't fathom his old friend's thoughts. This is the Soul King's will. Hayasube chuckled. Besides, we owe a debt to the ancestors of the Tsunoyoshiro family. What relevance does that have to the current Tsunoyoshiro clan? This is merely an internal conflict within their house. We outsiders mustn't interfere. As for Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada, he insisted on pursuing his own agenda and committed countless atrocities. His death merits no mourning. At the mention of the Soul King, all Zero Division members displayed profound respect while simultaneously expressing surprise. Uehara Shiroa was merely a Shinigami. Regardless of his strength, he could at most equal Genryusai Shigokuni Yamamoto's level. Such an individual should be inconsequential to the Soul King Palace. Why would the Soul King hold him in such high regard? That night, Uehara Shiroa returned to his mansion. He had just arranged for the court army to assume control over the Tsunoyoshiro family's inheritance and had managed all necessary concluding tasks. All blame conveniently fell upon the deceased Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada, the perfect scapegoat. His court army and Uehara himself were portrayed as loyal protector, their words and actions beyond reproach. For such a great loyal servant to receive a modest reward and acquire Tokunada's assets seemed entirely reasonable, did it not? He anticipated voices of opposition, of course. But he remained unconcerned. Soon, Aizen would begin causing trouble, diverting the attention of both the nobility and the Gotei 13. They would have no time to concern themselves with Uehara's activities. This would allow him to easily appropriate the Tsunoyoshiro family's accumulated wealth of tens of thousands of years. At that point, money would truly become just a number to him. While contemplating these matters, Uehara emerged from empty space, replacing the shadow clone he had left as a disguise with his actual body. Within his luxurious mansion, he began dispelling the numerous shadow clones distributed throughout the spatial dimension while casually practicing his calligraphy. Due to his shadow clone technique reaching such advanced proficiency, the number of clones he could deploy for training purposes continued to increase. It now required a substantial portion of his day merely to absorb the training experiences from these duplicates. The mere thought of growing stronger sent a thrill through Uehara Shiroha. This sensation of rapid advancement was truly exhilarating, making him willing to invest whatever time necessary to absorb the experiences of all his shadow clones. Only by possessing overwhelming power could one truly experience the magnificence of extraordinary existence. As long as he completed his tasks methodically, Uehara's spiritual pressure would continue to increase, a form of disguised immortality. Yet true immortality required genuine strength. Without power, one could neither protect loved ones nor oneself. The inevitable result would be continuous loss, helplessly watching as everything precious was taken away. Under such circumstances, immortality would transform into an inescapable curse. Now, however, Uehara possessed the power to control his own destiny. He lived peacefully, steadily, and freely. This represented genuine immortality. After attaining such formidable strength, Uehara understood the true meaning of enjoyment. As the saying goes, happy things in life make you feel refreshed, and the reverse held equally true. With powerful spiritual energy and physical capability, he approached every activity with enthusiasm, finding interest in even the most mundane observations. Simple daily activities like painting, singing, or fishing provided him with pleasures beyond what ordinary people could experience. He never encountered monotony or boredom in these pursuits. Of course, much of this enjoyment came from the people who served him. He no longer needed to express his desires for food or entertainment, or even glance in a particular direction. His subordinates naturally anticipated his wishes, preparing everything in advance to satisfy his every need. He effortlessly enjoyed luxuries beyond the imagination of ordinary souls. As for romantic companionship, the courtesans from Flower Street were enchanting and attentive in countless ways, while the beautiful Shinigami women each possessed their own unique charms. With such variety and abundance, how could Uehara ever grow weary or disinterested? Indeed, talent brought enjoyment, talent brought pleasure. This understanding had motivated his creation of the court army simply to enhance his quality of life. While contemplating these matters, Uehara completed absorbing the training experiences from all his shadow clones. Since acquiring the EX Unlimited Blade Works, he had dedicated all his clones to perfecting this ability. Their relentless practice had long since elevated the Unlimited Blade Works' proficiency to the mastery level. This mastery had allowed him to easily control the projection of Enriki Oten and defeat Tsunoyoshiro Tokunada so thoroughly that even the noble's own mother wouldn't have recognized him. After this practical combat application, his Unlimited Blade Works had grown marginally stronger. He sensed he stood merely one step away from achieving the breakthrough to the great success level. Fortuitously, Uehara completed the painting in his hand, fulfilling today's daily task. A system prompt immediately appeared. Congratulations on completing the daily task drawing, reward, White Album +1, Unlimited Blade Works +1. With this increase in attribute points, Unlimited Blade Works finally underwent the transformation from quantitative change to qualitative improvement, ascending to a higher level. Boom! A tremendous sound erupted, reminiscent of a singularity explosion, as his soul evolved. The Zanpakuto at his waist underwent a remarkable metamorphosis. With a mere thought, Uehara transported himself to the Shunkyo space. Essential changes had occurred within this dimension. Because his Shunkyo had transformed, the corresponding space had evolved into a higher dimensional existence. All these changes were attributable to the Unlimited Blade Works' effects. EX abilities were far from simple. Beyond merely copying and projecting weapons Uehara had witnessed, the Unlimited Blade Works could enhance existing weapons power. This wasn't ordinary enhancement but an improvement of fundamental essence equivalent to an elevation in status. After reaching the great success level of proficiency, the system's enhancement capabilities had improved dramatically, becoming vastly more potent. Consequently, both Shunkyo and its dimensional space had undergone earth-shaking transformations. Gazing at the vastly expanded Shunkyo space, Uehara spoke with quiet authority, "Let there be light." Instantly, soft white illumination filled the enormous expanse. There must be sky and earth. Gravity manifested. Clear air ascended while turbid elements descended, establishing heaven and earth. A continent materialized within the space. For the first time, the broken sky dimension witnessed the division of firmament and ground. Let there be sun. A massive crimson sun slowly rose, ascending high above to illuminate everything below. Observing this newly reformed Shunkyo space, now resembling a miniature world, Uehara nodded with satisfaction. He could sense that under the Unlimited Blade Works' blessing, this dimension possessed boundless vitality and fortune. This place was evolving into a genuine world with infinite possibilities. All universal elements found nurture within, as the fundamental laws gradually manifested. Uehara maintained absolute control over this space. Like a creator deity, he could transform the world with a mere gesture. He carefully experienced this godlike authority, a power that transcended mere utility, overriding time, space, and conventional rules. The evolved Shunkyo had surpassed the limitations of Shinigami power, ascending to an existence beyond conventional understanding. His authority over spatial rules had likewise strengthened. This Zanpakuto now exceeded the comprehension and control of both monk and sword god. Even Yawatch, after absorbing the Soul King's power, would be unable to nullify Shunkyo's Bankai, despite the monk perceiving no change in its name or abilities. In reality, Shunkyo's power had expanded dramatically. Originally, its first stage Bankai could eliminate enemies from past, a capability approaching transcendent level power. The second stage Bankai could target enemies from both past and future, creating an attack that even transcendence couldn't withstand. Now, the current Shunkyo could annihilate a Transcendent with merely its first stage Bankai. Should the second stage activate, even pseudo-Soul King level entities would falter. In terms of destructive capability, Shunkyo's Bankai now rivaled Old Man Yamamoto's Zanka no Tachi. Most terrifying of all, Shunkyo's Bankai remained immune to counter, defense, or neutralization. This constituted Uehara's ultimate technique and formed the foundation of his ability to challenge Soul King Yawatch. With this trump card, he could deliver shocking surprises to even the most ancient and powerful beings. Simultaneously, when confronting Aizen after his fusion with the Hogyoku, Uehara could maintain effortless control. He would certainly succeed in the special task of obtaining the Hogyoku. After completing this new special assignment, his strength would enhance further. Yet this represented merely the beginning. Unlimited blade works could grow stronger still, and Shunkyo's abilities would continue to evolve. With the task system's support, even the perfect level infinite blade system represented not an endpoint but a beginning. Perfect level EX abilities already matched Soul King power, an unattainable realm for others but merely a starting point for him. Eventually, even a resurrected Soul King might struggle against his might. This was true invincibility. After completing his training, Uehara remained immersed in contemplation of the unlimited blade works' power. He considered its many applications, and having familiarized himself with several powerful characters from the storyline, he tailored a luxury package specifically for them. With the adaptable unlimited blade works, he could arrange these individuals precisely as needed. Sensing several powerful spiritual pressures gathering, Uehara's gaze sharpened. His observation and hearing perception immediately expanded outward. His vision penetrated numerous obstacles and various barriers, revealing distant scenes. At that moment, the 1st Division Executive Office hosted an emergency captain meeting. All captains had assembled, with Jushiro Yukitake absent as usual due to illness. Observing the captain's seemingly normal demeanor, Uehara knew his previous arrangements had proven effective. Even now, these individuals remained unaware that the Tsuneyushiro family they were sworn to protect had been eliminated. Through his enhanced perception, he observed Aizen maintaining his facade of honest integrity, confronting Jin Ikamaru. The alarm sounded at a fortuitous moment, or you would never have escaped punishment. Nevertheless, don't imagine you can evade consequences, Captain of the 3rd Division, Jin Ikamaru. Captain Aizen, what exactly do you mean? I don't understand. Jin's perpetual smile faltered slightly, his tone carrying a hint of grievance. The typically gentle Aizen spoke sternly, Jin Ikamaru, I advise against underestimating me. Whatever conspiracy you're orchestrating, I will thwart it. Chapter 104, The Ryoka Incident. Aizen and Jin were speaking directly in front of 10th Division Captain Toshiro Hitsugaya. The genius prodigy heard their conversation clearly, his pupils contracting in response. From Uehara Shiroha's perspective, this was transparently deliberate, a case of two adults exploiting the young captain's inexperience and underdeveloped judgment. Hearing their cryptic exchange, Hitsugaya felt drawn into something significant, unaware that he was witnessing a performance staged specifically for his benefit. The young captain merely concluded that the good guy Aizen appeared genuinely concerned, which meant something must be wrong with Jin Ikamaru. After all, the perpetually squinting captain didn't look trustworthy, and there remained suspicion regarding his allowing the Ryoka intruders to escape. Previously, Jin had disobeyed orders by choosing to attack alone, and after encountering the Ryoka, he had inexplicably permitted their escape. For a captain, this represented a serious dereliction of duty. Considering the supposed threat of the intruders, his actions seemed highly irregular. Consequently, the captain commander and other captains had confronted Jin, demanding an explanation. It was at precisely that moment that the alarm had sounded, announcing that 6th Division Vice Captain Renji Abarai had been defeated by the Ryoka. When the captains received this news, their expressions remained largely unchanged. Each maintained their characteristic demeanor, apparently unconcerned by the Ryoka incident. Defeating a vice captain was merely a minor problem. For ordinary Shinigami, a vice captain represented a formidable figure. For captains, vice captain level fighters were unremarkable. Only Captain Commander Yamamoto Genryusai Shigakuni's expression had darkened. He opened his normally narrowed eyes and spoke in a grave tone. "We have already lost a vice captain, and we cannot allow this situation to continue. This mission is no longer suitable for lower-ranked Shinigami to handle. Now, in my capacity as Captain Commander of the Gotei 13, I hereby issue a special wartime order. Throughout Soul Society, all Shinigami must carry their Zanpakuto and are permitted to release them at any time. Given the urgency of our circumstances, I will not hold the 3rd Division Captain, Jin Ikamaru, accountable for his unauthorized attack." "Thank you very much." Jin responded with apparent relief, as though he had narrowly escaped punishment. However, the more Hitsugaya observed him, the more convinced he became that Jin's expression seemed artificial. Something was definitely wrong with Ikamaru, though Hitsugaya had no idea he was being deliberately manipulated by Aizen's machinations. "A wartime special order?" Aizen exclaimed with well-feigned shock. "Has the situation truly escalated to such a degree?" As he spoke, his gaze toward Jin Ikamaru grew increasingly suspicious. "Carry our Zanpakuto and release them at any time? Excellent." Kenpachi Zaraki grinned savagely. "In that case, the strongest prey belongs to me alone. None of you will snatch it from me." Shunsui Kairaku appeared deep in thought, sensing something amiss in the proceedings. The other 1,000-year-old captain, Retsu Unohana, maintained her gentle and generous demeanor, her expression serene and her eyes warm. Yet none could perceive that beneath her composed exterior, her warrior's blood stirred with growing anticipation. At this moment, Captain Commander Yamamoto opened his eyes once more and declared with unwavering resolve, "Let us begin the war, everyone." "War?" Uehara Shiroa retracted his observation haki and shook his head disapprovingly. Regardless of the other captain's private thoughts, the old man clearly underestimated their enemy this time. Against Aizen, the Gotei 13 would suffer repeated setbacks, constantly manipulated according to the traitor's design. Ultimately, without Ichigo Kurosaki and Kisuke Urahara's intervention, the outcome would have been catastrophic. The 1,000-year blood war proved even more devastating. Not only did they lose several captains in succession, but even the captain commander himself fell in battle. The Soul Society nearly fell to enemy forces, suffering tremendous casualties. The entire 3 realms had teetered on the brink of collapse. And now, with the Tsuneyoshiro family eliminated, Uehara contemplated what exactly the Gotei 13 was protecting. He had long understood that they couldn't be relied upon, which actually benefited his plans. He could operate more freely while causing disruption. What the situation truly required was a hard-working tool, someone capable of fighting and resisting. With this thought, Uehara shifted his attention to Ichigo Kurosaki. At that moment, Ichigo Kurosaki's eyes fluttered open. He felt profound weakness throughout his body, with sharp pain radiating from his chest. His torso and right arm were heavily bandaged. Though he had successfully defeated Renji Abarai, Ichigo had sustained serious injuries in the battle, remaining unconscious for some time. "You're awake, Mr. Ichigo?" Hanataro Yamada's anxious expression brightened with relief upon seeing Ichigo regain consciousness. Noticing the substitute Shinigami struggling to rise, Hanataro quickly objected, "Mr. Ichigo, you mustn't move. You were severely injured fighting Vice Captain Abarai. You're not ready to stand yet." Renji Abarai. The fierce-faced vice captain with his serpentine Zanpakuto flashed through Ichigo's mind. He shook his head and continued his attempt to rise. "How long have I been unconscious? I need to know what happened to Chad and the others, I have to find them." Renji Abarai was undeniably powerful, but he was merely a vice captain. Although Ichigo had defeated him, it had been a Pyrrhic victory at best. In Soul Society, 11 more individuals existed at Renji's level of power. More concerning were the 13 captains who surpassed even vice captain class fighters. These captains possessed tremendous strength. Nevertheless, Kurosaki would not retreat, his friends were somewhere in this hostile realm. He had nowhere to withdraw. Despite Hanataro's repeated entreaties, Ichigo continued struggling to leave. His determination ended abruptly when Ganju Shiba, unable to tolerate the display any longer, knocked him back down. "Mr. Ganju, what are you doing? That's too harsh." Hanataro cried out in alarm, seeing Ichigo sprawled on the ground. Ganju responded matter-of-factly, "Can't you see that if I didn't do this, he'd keep pushing himself? He can barely stand, going outside now would guarantee his death. I knocked him out to save him." "But, your method was excessively rough," Hanataro protested dejectedly. "Now there are more wounds to treat." After additional treatment, Ichigo's condition finally stabilized. Observing the substitute Shinigami now in deep sleep, Ganju offered begrudging praise. "Good work, kid. Treating such serious injuries, you're more capable than I expected." "It's largely due to Mr. Ichigo's unique physiology," Hanataro replied, studying the bandages covering Ichigo's chest with puzzlement. "Actually, I was quite surprised myself. When Vice Captain Abarai slashed open Mr. Ichigo's shoulder and chest, I thought such wounds would prove fatal. However, Mr. Ichigo's injuries were significantly shallower than anticipated." While speaking, his gaze drifted to the white bone mask lying on the ground nearby. The mask was elongated and narrow, adorned with golden patterns around the eye sockets, giving it a mysterious appearance. A strange aura emanated from it, causing Hanataro to feel uneasy and somewhat anxious in its presence. Hanataro pondered the mysterious object. This mask just fell out of Mr. Ichigo's robes. Could it have somehow protected him? But what kind of mask could possibly block Vice Captain Abarai's Zanpakuto? And why does it so closely resemble a hollow's mask? "This guy is really strange," Ganju muttered, oblivious to the peculiar mask on the ground. "When they came asking my sister for help, I thought it was odd. Invading Soul Society and challenging captains just to save a friend? Such an unusual Shinigami is rare. That's why I followed him here. I wanted to understand his thinking." Of course, Ganju's journey had another purpose. More than 20 years ago, his beloved elder brother Kaian Shiba had died at the hands of a Soul Society Shinigami. Yet until his final breath, Kaian had maintained pride in his identity as a Shinigami, harboring no resentment toward the organization. Ganju needed to understand why, to discover what had truly happened that fateful year. This quest for answers had led him to accompany Ichigo to Soul Society. "I think I'm beginning to understand Mr. Ichigo's choices," Hanataro said, his expression sympathetic. "I've never had many friends and have always been ridiculed. Miss Rukia, despite being a member of the four noble families, spoke to me kindly and never looked down on me. She became my only friend." His voice grew firmer. "I would risk everything for my friends too. That's why I chose to help Ichigo Kurosaki to rescue Rukia Kachiki. Though you appear timid, you're surprisingly dependable." Ganju sighed. Simultaneously, he began to understand his brother's lifelong devotion to the Shinigami. Perhaps they weren't all the cold-blooded, selfish individuals he had believed them to be. "Such passion," Uehara Shiroha remarked, shaking his head in his luxurious quarters. He didn't dislike friendship and passion, on the contrary, he somewhat admired these qualities. However, friendship and passion without strength were ultimately meaningless. In the original timeline, although Ichigo had successfully rescued Rukia, Aizen had nearly destroyed him. Even with various advantages, Ichigo had been overwhelmed by both superior strength and intellect. The reason Uehara could maintain his position wasn't due to passion, but rather his formidable power and knowledge of future events. Compared to passion and friendship, he placed greater faith in his task system and the sword at his side. Why exhaust himself with emotional fervor? With sufficient ability, wouldn't it be more satisfying to raise the enemy's blood pressure instead? There was something uniquely gratifying about watching an opponent's face flush with rage yet remain powerless to act against you. Sweeping away all opposition and enjoying life, these were his true pursuits. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar spiritual pressure approaching. Right on schedule, he murmured to himself. A gentle knock sounded at his door, accompanied by a soft voice. "Teacher Uehara, may I trouble you for a moment?" Outside, Momo Hinamori shifted anxiously. She had visited this mansion numerous times before, even entering the master bedroom on several occasions. Nevertheless, disturbing her teacher at this hour seemed inappropriate. Had the maid not informed her that the teacher was expecting her, and had her concerns not been so pressing, Momo would never have intruded. Only in her teacher's presence could she find genuine peace of mind. "It's Momo, come in." Uehara rose and opened the door, gazing at the innocent little white rabbit before him. Under the ambient light, the young woman appeared pure and lovely, like a naturally formed plum blossom. Her delicate round face, full of youthful collagen, looked so tender that it seemed water could be squeezed from it. Youth truly was the finest cosmetic. Although Hinamori lacked the voluptuous figure of Ranjiko Matsumoto, her youthful charm carried its own allure. Now she gazed at him with sparkling, hopeful eyes, the picture of innocence. Uehara silently cursed in his thoughts, Aizen is truly monstrous to harm such an adorable girl. Unlike me, I would only cherish her. Teacher Uehara, Momo pleaded, I know you're incredibly busy, but I promise not to disturb you. I'll remain quiet and well-behaved, just allow me to stay by your side. Recent days had placed tremendous pressure on Hinamori. Soul Society had suddenly issued the special wartime order, Rinji Abarai had been wounded, and Rukia faced execution. Captain Aizen appeared troubled by some unknown difficulty, his expression constantly worried. Moreover, Toshiro had warned her to be cautious around 3rd Division Captain Jin Ikamaru, suggesting he might pose a threat to Captain Aizen. Her mind was in complete disarray. Throughout Soul Society, Uehara Shiroa remained the only person she could fully trust. Don't worry, I'll manage everything. It's going to be fine, Uehara reassured with a warm smile, embracing the panic-stricken Hinamori. Her body felt soft and comforting against his an exquisitely proportioned figure that fit perfectly in his arms, leaving no space between them. Compared to the talented courtesans he had known, Shinigami women possessed a distinctive refinement, their bodies well-balanced and powerful. This sensation remained indescribable to ordinary individuals. In the original timeline, Hinamori had sought Aizen's help. This time, she had come to him instead. The reason was obvious, he presented a more appealing figure than the bespectacled Aizen who had yet to reveal his true appearance. In truth, even Aizen's complete form couldn't compare to Uehara's current magnificence. Uehara wasn't merely handsome, he radiated extraordinary charisma and displayed exceptional talents. From physique to appearance, from temperament to identity and strength, he exhibited no flaws. He embodied the ideal of masculine perfection. Teacher, Momo whispered after sinking into his embrace. Facing this delivered to his door innocent, Uehara responded with calculated tenderness, I understand. You don't wish to witness conflict and bloodshed. You hope for peace to prevail. Don't worry, this will conclude soon, and everything will return to normal. The wartime special order represented sacrifice and bloodshed, it signaled impending war. Whether from naivety or kindness, even though the Ryoka had injured her friends, Hinamori remained reluctant to fight them. Rukia, Harabel, and others shared this reluctance. These individuals failed to comprehend a fundamental truth: without power, peace remained unattainable. In the Naruto universe, where upon Hashirama's death the 5 great villages resumed their conflicts, instantly reducing peace to a mere illusion, everything stemmed from insufficient power. It hardly mattered now. After tonight, none of this would concern them anyway. Uehara's words resonated deeply within Hinamori's heart, profoundly moving her. And so, the metaphorical wolf devoured the innocent rabbit. Meanwhile, Aizen had already staged his death, suspending himself from the wall. With time to spare, he indulged his flair for the dramatic while ensuring maximum attention. To enhance the theatrical effect, he had deliberately increased the bloodshed. Captain of the 5th Division, Sasuke Aizen, appeared crucified against the wall. The expressions of the Shinigami who would discover this scene would surely prove fascinating. He anticipated the captain's reactions with considerable enthusiasm. Shortly thereafter, vice captains preparing for battle discovered the shocking tableau. Captain Aizen of the 5th Division had been pinned to the sacred east wall. The murder weapon was none other than Aizen's own Zanpakuto, Kyoka Suigetsu. The vice captains who encountered this horrific scene stood frozen in terror. Chapter 105, Inheritance. In the central underground meeting hall, Kanen Tozen and Aizen, maintaining their elaborate deception, observed the unusual movements of the Gotii 13. Tozen's expression shifted with concern. Master Aizen, they appear to have noticed your arrangement. Everything seems to be proceeding according to plan. It's merely a diversion to buy time. Success or failure is of little consequence, Aizen replied coolly, eyeing the secret entrance to the underground council chamber as he prepared to enter. His destination was the Great Spirit Book Archive, where he intended to examine various classified documents. At this moment, Tozen produced several documents, his expression complicated. Uehara Shiroha reports that the Tsunayoshiro family was exterminated by Tsunayoshiro Tokunada. He has requested authorization to assume control of all Tsunayoshiro family assets and holdings. Tozen had always harbored ill feelings toward the Tsunayoshiro family. Hatred would not be an overstatement. Had he not feared disrupting their meticulously crafted plans, he would have moved against them long ago. Ironically, while the world of justice he envisioned remained distant, Uehara Shiroha had apparently dispensed that justice on his behalf. Perfect timing, and brilliantly executed, Aizen remarked, unsurprised by Tokunada's demise. He hadn't anticipated, however, that Uehara would act so decisively, eliminating one of the four great noble houses. The man evidently held no fear of Squad Zero. Aizen himself had been more measured, slaughtering merely Tsunayoshiro family pawns without targeting principal members. This Uehara Shiroha either refrained from action entirely or left nothing alive when he did act. Impressive. Tozen continued, not only was the timing impeccable, but everything was flawlessly arranged. The documents contain images of Tsunayoshiro Tokunada's crimes and traces of his spiritual pressure. The evidence is irrefutable. He even produced Tsunayoshiro Tokikawa's will, in which Tokikawa recognizes Uehara Shiroha's legal right of inheritance. What should our response be? The most audacious element was this purported will. In it, Tokikawa candidly admitted his error in refusing the court army's protection and Uehara's assistance. As head of the Tsunayoshiro family, he expressed profound regret for his negligence, claiming all responsibility rested with Tokunada. According to the document, Uehara had detected irregularities and intervened just in time to eliminate Tokunada, thereby avenging the clan members. Consequently, before his death, Tokikawa, in his capacity as family head, entrusted the entire Tsunayoshiro estate to Uehara Shiroha. Tozen recognized that such statements were completely out of character for Tokikawa. Nevertheless, the suicide note appeared flawless, leaving him without grounds for objection. Agree to his terms, Aizen instructed confidently. As long as he remains within the noble district, everything will proceed smoothly. I understand he harbors additional schemes, much like Urahara. However, once we obtain the Hogyoku, none of that will matter. Our plan advances steadily, ultimate victory will be ours. With these words, he proceeded toward the secret entrance leading to the Great Spirit Book Archive. Tozen immediately issued an order acknowledging Uehara Shiroha's legitimate claim to the Tsunayoshiro inheritance. Both parties tacitly agreed to handle the matter discreetly. No one could have predicted that the Tsunayoshiro family, one of the four great noble houses, would meet such an inglorious and silent end. Nevertheless, news of this development circulated among high-ranking Shinigami and nobles. Shortly thereafter, Uehara Shiroha arrived at the Tsunayoshiro family estate. A substantial contingent of court army troops had secured the perimeter. This vast area represented the Tsunayoshiro sphere of influence, effectively a small, isolated nation. Now this private kingdom belonged to him. Upon arrival, Uehara noticed Byakuya Kuchiki's presence. The noble captain acknowledged him with a curt nod, his expression characteristically cold. On behalf of the Gold Seal Noble Council, I inform you that we have provisionally approved Captain Commander Uehara's request. We shall render our final decision once the Ryoka incident has concluded. Inwardly, Byakuya was profoundly shocked. That the Tsunayoshiro family had been decimated by Tokunada alone was astonishing. Though Tokunada had relied on the Enreikyoten to accomplish this feat single-handedly, the outcome remained deeply disturbing. Moreover, Byakuya found it inconceivable that someone of Tokikawa's character would willingly relinquish the Tsunayoshiro legacy to Uehara Shiroha. Despite his private doubts, rules remained rules, he could not reject the proposal outright. The Shihoin family had approved the arrangement without hesitation. Consequently, Uehara now legitimately controlled everything belonging to the Tsunayoshiro family. I understand, Uehara responded with apparent indifference. With endorsements from Central 46 and the Gold Seal Noble Council, all his actions possessed legal standing and reasonable justification. This approach would circumvent numerous complications. Though unafraid of challenges, he saw no reason to invite unnecessary trouble. Would it not be preferable to use this time drinking tea, fishing, and enjoying the company of his companions? From this day forward, the Tsunoyoshiro family's legacy, spanning countless millennia, belonged solely to him. Quite the windfall. Byakuya offered a slight bow to Uehara and said, "Well, Captain Commander Uehara, I shall take my leave." Watching the 6th Division captain depart, Uehara shook his head. The Kuchiki family had never demonstrated true greatness. When the Soul King suffered betrayal, the Tsunoyoshiro family had executed the attack, the Shiba family provided technological expertise, and the Shihoin family supplied equipment. Meanwhile, the Kuchiki family had merely stood aside, offering hollow praise. They claimed to defend nobility and uphold regulations, yet they behaved as opportunists, the quintessential followers of prevailing winds. Consequently, Uehara harbored no expectation that they would speak for the deceased. Similarly, he anticipated no intervention on Rukia's behalf. As these thoughts crossed his mind, Uehara heard court army sergeants shouting in the distance, "Fall back! No one approaches without the captain commander's explicit authorization." He observed the figures that had suddenly materialized in the distance and reflected, "I knew some fools would come seeking their demise. Having established my claim, I now require a show of force and opportunity to kill a chicken to frighten the monkeys. Let's see whether their obstinacy exceeds the sharpness of my blade. Who dares intrude? This territory is under my jurisdiction, are you unaware?" Uehara approached the confrontation between his court army soldiers and the newcomers. "Commander!" Several soldiers immediately saluted respectfully, admiration evident in their gazes. The group's leader, a man adorned in elaborate attire, regarded Uehara coldly, his brow furrowing. "I am Ichiro Takefu, head of the Takefu family. You claim this as your territory? This land has belonged to our noble lineage for generations. That remains unchanged. As a subordinate family of the Tsunoyoshiro house, the Takefu clan's fortunes had always been intertwined with their liege lords. As a subordinate family of the Tsunoyoshiro house, the Takefu clan believed they possessed a natural right of inheritance to the Tsunoyoshiro legacy. Even with Central 46 and the Gold Seal Noble Council supporting the court army, Ichiro Takefu refused to surrender. The interests at stake were simply too substantial. Moreover, he looked down upon both the court army and Uehara Shiroha. When had it become acceptable for a commoner from Rukongai to inherit noble possessions? The very notion was absurd. "So, you presume to take what rightfully belongs to me? By what authority?" Uehara released a fraction of his spiritual pressure, pure ryatsu without killing intent, as these individuals weren't worthy of his full effort. Even this minimal display caused the men surrounding Takefu to physically buckle, their faces etched with involuntary fear. Takefu himself, despite his initially dignified expression, trembled visibly. Gritting his teeth, he managed to respond. "I swore an oath of loyalty to the Tsunoyoshiro family and Lord Tokikawa long ago. No one shall seize our property." His voice grew strained but defiant. "Remember this: everything you possess was granted by us. You must adhere to our rules, or there will be no place for you within Soul Society." Other families might silently endure as the court army encroached upon noble interests. The Takefu family, however, could not afford such passivity. Their fate was inextricably bound to the Tsunoyoshiro house. Takefu had no choice but to challenge this usurpation. He couldn't believe Uehara would dare harm him. After all, this was Soul Society, this was the noble district, where aristocrats maintained final authority. A disdainful smile spread across Uehara's face. "I wish to enjoy the privileges of your noble class without submitting to your regulations. What do you suppose I should do about that?" Uehara appreciated both the courtesans and female shinigami of the noble houses. These exceptional women had been carefully cultivated through generations of selective breeding, some requiring centuries to reach their full potential. The nobility had contributed significantly to this refinement. Furthermore, the luxurious amenities and precious resources had been developed under noble patronage. Uehara found the world created by the nobility quite satisfactory and had no objection to enjoying the fruits of their labor. However, he despised their arbitrary rules, restrictions, and the nobles themselves. This explained the Tsunayoshiro family's demise. "You dare defy our regulations?" Takefu's expression reflected utter disbelief. Uehara responded with contempt, "You believe yourselves in control of everything, yet you possess no genuine power. The rules you revere and your so-called noble dignity are extraordinarily fragile. There had never been any rules, only the law of the jungle. Everything was fundamentally that simple. For the strong, this world was paradise, for the weak, it was hell." Takefu shouted desperately, "This is Noble Street, the territory of the Siriitii aristocracy. We have accumulated tens of thousands of years of wisdom and possess resources beyond your imagination." His remaining words died in his throat as a court army member beside him plunged a blade into his body with cold precision. Another simultaneously attacked the three Takefu family Shinigami. "Why?" Ichiro Takefu's expression reflected profound confusion as his life ebbed away. Wasn't this Noble Street? Weren't aristocrats the unquestioned authorities here? How could anyone dare commit crimes against nobility in broad daylight? Was there no justice? No law? Moreover, he recognized this court army member as having noble lineage himself. Why would he commit such treasonous acts merely at Uehara's silent command? Why betray the nobility and his own class? Too many questions clouded his fading consciousness, but none would ever be answered as darkness claimed him. "Commander, mission accomplished." After eliminating these irritants, both court army members saluted Uehara respectfully. Uehara nodded appreciatively. "Well done. Remember this: our court army prevails whether through victory or defeat. This is our way. If they refuse to accept our authority, let them perish. Whoever wielded the greater power established the rules. He cared nothing for hollow reputation." With these words, Uehara proceeded toward the Tsunayoshiro family's treasure vault. Along the route, every soldier bowed deeply. Had Takefu lived to witness the expressions in these soldiers' eyes, he would have understood why court armies of aristocratic origin had drawn swords against him. In their eyes, Uehara Shiroa represented their only leader, their god. What impressive wealth! Within the Tsunayoshiro treasury, Uehara surveyed the treasures filling several warehouses with evident satisfaction. As the treasury doors swung open, a kaleidoscopic display greeted his eyes. The vault contained various divine beast materials and inherited treasures from numerous families. These riches represented the Tsunayoshiro family's accumulated plunder spanning tens of thousands of years, property obtained through exploiting the entirety of Soul Society, forming the foundation of the four noble houses' confidence and power. Each treasure carried its own history, some directly linked to the extinction of entire clans. To acquire these valuables, the Tsunayoshiro family had employed unscrupulous, merciless methods. In many respects, these treasures resembled blood diamonds. Notably, no currency resided within the treasury. To the Tsunayoshiro family, money represented the least valuable commodity, unworthy of vault space. Moreover, this particular treasure house was merely one among many, and not even the most impressive. While ordinary citizens in Rukongai struggled to afford basic sustenance, the Tsunayoshiro family hoarded such staggering wealth. This situation perfectly exemplified the saying, "The rich feast and drink, while the poor freeze to death in the streets." For this reason alone, the Tsunayoshiro family had deserved extinction. Examining the treasures within this warehouse, Uehara reflected that he should have trampled all nobles underfoot long ago. In his assessment, the Tsunayoshiro family's downfall was entirely justified not solely because of their greed and exploitation of countless souls' blood and sweat, but also due to their stupidity and incompetence. When the Gotei 13 was initially established, the Kuchiki and Shihoin families had actively joined and secured control of their respective divisions. Meanwhile, the Tsunayoshiro family had ridiculed these houses, insisting that combat was a peasant's occupation. True lords concerned themselves with governance and dignity. Later, when the Shiba family also integrated into the Gotei 13, and as the organization grew increasingly powerful, the Tsunoyoshiro family had reluctantly sent their family descendant Tokunada to study at the Shino Academy. Nevertheless, they never seriously attempted to secure direct power. They believed that through controlling Central 46, they could manipulate the Gotei 13 indirectly. They maintained unwavering faith in aristocratic rights and majesty, convinced of their righteousness just as Takefuichiro had, before being summarily executed by an ordinary court army sergeant. The Tsunoyoshiro family would rather allow these precious treasures to accumulate dust than convert them into practical strength. Even their family artifact, the Enreikyoten, Tokikawa had feared to use, choosing instead to seal it away. The result? The illustrious, unparalleled Tsunoyoshiro family had been annihilated overnight by Tokunada. All treasures they had so painstakingly acquired now belonged to Uehara Shiroha. These short-sighted fools had deserved extinction. Even commoners understood that weapons held greater importance than wealth. As the saying went, power flows from the barrel of a gun, and truth existed only within the range of cannons. Though Uehara greatly appreciated these treasures, he refused to be blinded by them. His priority was converting these resources into personal power. After careful selection, Uehara examined the treasures in his possession with satisfaction. First among them was a horn from the mythical fire rhinoceros, containing tremendous fire-based power. More than a millennium ago, this creature had devastated Rukongai, its rampage proving unstoppable as it burned countless homes and claimed thousands of lives. Yamamoto Genryusai had personally intervened and slain the beast. Consequently, Yamamoto had received military commendation while the Tsunoyoshiro family had claimed the valuable trophy. The vault contained numerous materials of similar value. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.